Greetings, welcome to another Deckard Games YouTube modern PC thing, and today we have a new GPU here on the channel. I haven't done a GPU review in a while, and I was sent this ASUS. It is the ROG Strix gaming graphics card series, more specifically the Radeon RX 6600 XT. This was sent by the guys, it is a review unit sent by the guys at Switch Technology in Lisboa. If you want great prices and great customer care, Switch Technology in Lisboa is the place to go. They are passionate about computers, old and new, and their preservation and technology in general. Please check the link in the description for more information. And we are going to take a look at it. At the front of the box we can see that, well, it is the ROG Strix gaming graphics card series with some RGB going on in there. AMD says, well, it is meant to be used with 1080p gaming, features 8 GB of VRAM and PCIe 4.0 support. Of course, the new RDNA 2 architecture. Let's quickly look at the back. Looking at the back, we have some info on the I/O, 3 display ports and 1 HDMI, the dual fan, 2 axial tech fans from ASUS, whatever. So sure, AMD Fidelity FX for games that support the technology, Radeon anti-lag, DirectX 12, RDNA 2, 7nm GPU. So sure, a lot of techy information at the back. So let's open this thing. And look at that, inside the box we have another box featuring the ASUS logo in search of incredible, because screw trees. So let's make a double box, why not? So let's take a closer look at the card. And here we are back in closer with our black box, which by opening it reveals the GPU itself. So let's take this thing out. Ah yes, the ASUS unpacking steps. I remember these from my 3070 review, something like that, I believe. So sure, what do we have here? Oh, we have a couple of Velcro ties featuring the Republic of Gamers logo. Huh, awesome. As always, I say that my way. Ooh, oh, wait a minute, we have paper. We have paper. Oh yes, love me some paper. We have the card that ASUS sent you with the card. So sure. We have a thank you note for giving us money. Why not? We have a speed setup for the GPU and a warranty card. So sure. As I was saying, I say that my way is better than ASUS way, because well, they want you to unfold this and do that and whatever. I just say, well, let's just take this out. Sure, there we are, and there we have it, way faster. And here we have the card itself, a very black and gray GPU featuring the Radeon name or logo and the ROG Strix with the Republic of Gamers thing in there. This lights up. Don't know if we can control it or not. We will check it out in a moment. There we have the 2 fans cooling solution by ASUS. We have a 8-pin PCIe connector only, but well, it is not 6, it is 8-pin. We have our I/O, 1 HDMI port and 2 and another, making 3 display ports. So yeah, I say it is a pretty cool looking card. It is kind of small, which is okay, because GPUs are getting ridiculously big. So sure. The heatsink, as you can see, is mounted towards the back of the card, so some air will make its way out from the back plate, because, well, it is horizontal, not vertical. Vertical ones send the air against the PCIe slot, so sure. I suppose we should do a peel, because why not? Ooh! Ah yes, ASUS always includes the BIOS switch. We have the there we have our BIOS switch, P mode and Q mode. I will check in a moment what these mean. So yeah, let's get to some peel, because well, that's what you gotta do. And here we are back in closer again, a closer look at the card, the Radeon logo, the ASUS Strix Republic of Gamers logo in there, one 8-pin PCIe connector, the dual fan solution, our backplate, again featuring the Republic of Gamers logo, our I/O, one HDMI and 3 display ports, and that's pretty much it. So I say, let's remove this. I'm guessing we have another one in here, so let's take care of that. Ah, satisfying. So, card is up and ready to go into a machine, and I suppose we should look at numbers. And this is meant to go head to head with the 36 from Nvidia, the RTX 36. So going to test this and compare it with that card, since I have reviewed that one in the past. So yeah, let's put this into a machine and look at numbers, because numbers are cool. As usual, we are going to take a look at a few games and their numbers. Important notice, all the tests were made with the performance BIOS switch on and not the quiet one. We are going to go game by game, and we are going to check three resolutions: 1080p, 1440p and 4K. And we are also going to compare the GPU with its direct competitor, that being the RTX 3060 Ti from Nvidia. Let's kick things off with Battlefield 5, a DirectX 12 game running at ultra settings, and at 1080p. The 6600 XT gets an average of 78 frames per second, with a minimum of 60 and 45 1% lows. When comparing it with the RTX 3060 Ti, we can see an average of 110 frames per second and a minimum of 54, so well ahead of the 6600 XT. Scaling to 1440p, the 6600 XT gets an average of 70 frames per second with a minimum of 53. Looking at the numbers from the RTX 3060 Ti, we get an average of 82 with a minimum of 54, leaving the RTX ahead once again. Scaling again to 4K, the 6600 gets 42 frames per second on average with 13 minimums, and this is the only resolution where it comes ahead of the 3060 Ti, which gets 40 frames per second. Moving to Borderlands 3, another DirectX 12 game running at ultra settings, and this one being a AMD game, the 6600 XT gets an average of 99 frames per second with a minimum of 87, coming ahead of the 3060 Ti with 92 frames per second. Scaling to 1440p, the 6600 gets an average of 65 frames per second with a minimum of 52, but in this case falling behind the RTX 3060 Ti, which gets 69 frames per second with a minimum of 54. Going up again to 4K, the 6600 XT gets an average of 70 frames per second with a minimum of 58, well ahead of the 3060 Ti, which gets 39 frames per second on average and a minimum of 34. Moving to control another DirectX 12 game running at ultra settings, the 6600 XT gets an average of 86 frames per second with a minimum of 76, falling behind the RTX 3060 Ti with 102 frames per second and with a minimum of 36. Moving to 1440p, the 6600 XT gets an average of 51 frames per second with a minimum of 46 and 43 1% lows. Again falling behind the 3060 Ti, which gets 72 frames per second on average with a minimum of 51. Scaling to 4K, the 6600 XT gets an average of 22 frames per second with 19 1% lows, while the RTX 3060 Ti gets an average of 40 frames per second with 38 1% lows. By the third game, we can pretty much see a pattern forming here, where the 3060 Ti comes always ahead of the 6600 XT by quite a few margin. Next on the list is Cyberpunk 2077, a DirectX 12 game running at high settings. The 6600 XT gets an average of 68 frames per second at 1080p with 51 minimums, while the RTX 3060 Ti gets an average of 77 with 71 at minimum. Moving to 1440p, things get a little bit closer, with the 6600 XT getting an average of 54 frames per second, while the RTX 3060 Ti gets 55. Going up to 4K, the 6600 XT gets an average of 23 frames per second with 13 1% lows, while the 3060 Ti gets an average of 36 frames per second with 26 1% lows. Next up we have Doom Eternal running the Vulkan API at Ultra Nightmare settings, a game which can run on the screen that you may or may not have on your refrigerator. At 1080p, the 6600 XT gets an average of 234 frames per second with 151 1% lows. Going to 1440p, the 6600 XT gets an average of 174 frames per second with a minimum of 112 1% lows. Scaling up to 4K, the 6600 XT gets an average of 87 frames per second, a minimum of 48 and 53 1% lows. Again in Doom Eternal, the RTX 3060 Ti comes ahead of the 6600 XT, but well, again, Doom Eternal runs on everything, so make of this what you will. Next up is GTA 5, the only DirectX 11 game on the list running at ultra settings, and at 1080p the 6600 XT gets an average of 149 frames per second with 75 1% lows. Going to 1440p, the 6600 XT gets an average of 144 frames per second with 91% lows. Scaling up again to 4K, the 6600 XT gets an average of 106 frames per second, a minimum of 61 and 62 1% lows. Again, another game where the RTX 3060 Ti comes ahead of the 6600 XT. Another game on the list is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, another DirectX 12 game running at the highest settings, and at 1080p the 6600 XT gets an average of 94 frames per second with 47 1% lows, while the RTX 3060 Ti gets 137 frames per second. Scaling to 1440p, the 6600 XT gets an average of 90 frames per second with 41 1% lows, while the RTX 3060 Ti gets 98 frames per second on average. Going up again to 4K, the 6600 XT gets an average of 52 frames per second, and it's a tie. Yeah, it is the only game and the only resolution where the two cards are tied at the average frames per second. 52 for each, The minimums very close also, and the 1% lows 41 for the 6600 and 42 for the 3060 Ti. When it comes to acoustics, running the 3D Mark x Pi demo on a loop, the card gets a maximum of 57 decibels of noise and an average of 52. The measurement was made with the case open at an approximately 20 centimeters of distance. Obviously that closing the case reduces the noise levels to the user, and overall it is a somewhat silent GPU with the dual fan solution and the fins on the heatsink vertical to the GPU, so some air and noise goes out the back. When it comes to thermals again, running the 3D Mark x Pi demo on loop, the GPU hits a maximum temperature of 62 degrees Celsius, while the frequency clock is at maximum around 4200 MHz. And again, this is a stress test in real life conditions. The GPU won't be at 100% all the time, so temperatures might go down during time. So would I recommend the RX 6600 XT? The answer is a yes and no. If you are looking for the cheapest GPU or a modern day GPU that money can buy on the market, well, I would say yes, this is a cool card to own, and it is a good card for 1080p and in some cases also for 1440p. But the question is it better than the RTX 3060 Ti? And the answer is no. The 3060 Ti costs around $50 more than the 6600 XT, and you get a somewhat considerable more performance out of it for 50 bucks. Yes, $50 is money, and this is a $650 card, more or less, while the 3060 Ti is a $700 card, again, more or less. And for a lot of people, $50 makes a difference on a budget while buying a new computer. If that is your case, again, if you want the cheapest modern day GPU money can buy, this is a good choice. If you are willing to spend $50 more, I would go with the RTX 3060 Ti without a question. And this concludes the analysis or review of the RX 6600 XT. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a thumbs up, because I appreciate your thumbs that are up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because your support is always and very much appreciated. Check out the other videos that I have here on the channel on modern GPUs and old computers and stuff like that. Remember that you can follow me on social media if you want to, because social media is the thing. As always, thank you very much for watching this that you just did, and until my next video, please do take care.